All right, just when you thought you had gotten all this conquered, we say, that's nice. You got equations, but now what about if they're not equations? Or we say they're not equal, or maybe part of them is not equal. So how are we going to deal with that? So these little symbols that we've used before, less than or greater than, will be used, but now in combination sometimes with the equal sign. So as you see here, we have some different symbols. If the equal sign has a line through it, like this one right here, it means it's not equal. If it has an equal sign below it, like this, it means it is either less than or equal to. It's one or the other. All right, or maybe it's a whole range of values that could apply. So let's look at this. Yeah, you can tell we're going to do a little modeling now. So get out those number lines, use graph paper. The first thing we have to look at is how do we put it on a graph? And the circle that's empty versus the circle that's filled is the first thing we have to conquer. We're going to put a point on a number line. And this is the solution to our problem. And so we're going to say something like n is less than 7. And we have to put that on a number line. Or we're going to say n is greater than or equal to 8. So how's that going to look? The first thing is to understand that when a circle is not filled in, it means it can't be that number. So the first one, we know that the value cannot be 7. So we're going to place 7 on our number line, and we have to think ahead. We know that n has to be less than 7, so we want to make sure that 7 is on our number line in a place where the other values are also there and very easy to see. We're not concerned about 8, 9, 10 because we know that they can't be greater than 7. So always think, do I need to start on my left or start on my right? We know it can't be equal to 7, so we're going to draw a circle around the 7, but we're not going to fill it in because it cannot be equal to 7. But we know that n can be a value that's less than 7. So we're going to draw a line, and I would suggest that you use another color, maybe even a highlighter, just not yellow, to draw your arrows. It works really nice like this because you can see the difference between the arrow and the line. Make sure when you're drawing your arrows that they show up. Don't leave the teacher or anybody else to guess where you drew your line. So if you need to go back over it and make it nice and bold, and go back over your circle to make sure that it's big enough that I can see it. And then remember that our answer goes above. The answer is n. N could be 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So n is the answer, and it just can't equal 7, and it can't be greater than 7. All right, now we're going to deal with one where it could be the value stated. It could be 8. And this time, n is going to be bigger than 8, or it could be equal to 8. So I'm not worried so much about where my 0 is. I'm worried about where my 8 is. Let's say I'll put my 8 right here, which means that would be 10, 12, 14. Make sure that you're numbering enough of your number line so that we get the idea, but you don't have to number every line. All right, so if n can be equal to 8, then we are going to fill in our circle Make sure you make it big enough that we can see it. Do it in another color. And it has to be equal to or greater than. So we're going to draw our arrow in this direction. Make sure it's long enough that we can see it, but it doesn't have to extend to the other end of the number line. That would be fine. And then, of course, this is the value of n. N can be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and on into infinity. So this is how we graph the answers on a number line. Now, we're going to do everything we learned in the first part of this chapter, plus put the answer on a number line. So the next part of this should look familiar. Okay, we're going to start with an addition problem. And we're going to say n plus 3, but now it's not going to be equal to 7. It's going to be greater than 7. We're going to solve this in the same way as we did before. Pretending that that's an equal sign, we're going to isolate our variable by taking the opposite. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. And there you go. So the problem itself wasn't so bad, but now I have to put it on the number line. So n can't be equal to 4. It has to be bigger than 4. So I got to figure out where I want my 4. Well, if that's 4, then 2 goes there. That would be 6, 8, 10. It can't be equal to 4, so I'm going to draw a circle. It must be greater than 4. So I'm going to draw an arrow pointing towards the greater values. Okay, now let's try it with subtraction. All right, now we're going to do a subtraction problem. First of all, we want to work out the solution or possible solutions to our problem. Isolate the variable, take its opposite. Did I just write 30? Really? Good grief. I was so distracted by that weird plus sign that I wasn't paying attention. This should look familiar. All right, so let's check. Everything there, we took its opposite, positive, did it on both sides, drew our line, worked down, and there you go. All right, so we know that 44 is where we start. How do we do that on a number line? Well, obviously, number lines don't always have to go by 1. We know we have to have 44 on there, and that our value is going to be less than that. So let's put a 44 here. And let's say if that's 44, this is 40. And this would be 36, and this would be 32. And that gives us an idea, well, maybe we'll put 48 over there. That gives us an idea of where we are on the number line. And we want our 44, and it's filled in because it can be equal to 44. But n has to be less than that. 44 has to be greater. N has to be either equal to or less than. And there we go. All right, let's now try multiplication. All right, let's do, how about 3n equals 18. You already know the solution to this. Oh, we can't do equal, can we? Let's do equal to or greater than. There we go. But remember, everything else is the same. There is no difference. When we solve this, the rules still apply. All right, so the opposite of multiplying by 3 is dividing by 3. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. That goes away. N is greater than or equal to 8 divided by 3. It goes in 2 times, that would be 6, with 2/3 left over. And that's the same value as 2.6 bar. All right, so here is an interesting thing. I don't have to put the circle right at the intersection of the vertical and horizontal. So in this case, I want to have it in between. And n has to be bigger than 2. So I got to make sure that I've got my value 2. Let's say maybe this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. That would be good enough. Let's maybe do one more. And then n is going to be greater than that. So that means that I need a circle on the 2 2/3, which is going to go here. But because it could be equal to that, I have to fill in my circle. So it has to go in a positive direction, and is going to be greater than 2 2/3. And there it is. Okay, one more, and then we're done. All right, this one will be a division problem. So let's say we have n divided by 8, and that's going to be, let's do 7. You know what the answer is, right? And it's going to be 56. Notice that I'm dealing with values that require that my number line be adjusted. So remember on the division, we show the opposite on both sides, which is times 8 times 8. And you can tell that now n is going to be 56. All right, how do I put n? But you caught me. Let's change something. We're doing inequalities. So that means we have to erase this. And let's make it a less than sign, which means this has to be a less than sign. You see, though, how they're exactly the same as if you were doing an equation. This is an inequality, though. So n is going to be a smaller value than 56. That means 56 better go on my right side. There's 56. And this could be 54. You need to put enough on there so we know approximately where 0 is going to be. 0 is going to be way down there, but we know what direction it's going in. There we go. And then maybe 1 on the other side. There you go. All right, it can't be equal to 56. So remember, that's a circle. Don't fill it in. It's not equal to 56. N has to be less than. So my arrow needs to go to the lesser values. And anything along that line can be equal to n. There you go. Done with that lesson. And now all we need to do is practice.